That's mine.
Oh, that's you. So we're doing dual recording, the recording of the recording.
Yeah, I mean, I would later also get it from Mike, maybe, but.
I give it a 50-50 shot that I succeed. So I think it's good to have redundancy.
So the other 50 part of it, really cautious.
No, it's all good. I just was, wondering if somebody doesn't see it, stands in front of it.
Yeah. All right, let's begin, I guess.
Yeah. Giving folks like 30 seconds probably.
Using the atomic clock.
I think it's waiting for someone. All right, let's begin. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my talk. Pretty encouraging to see the turnout, so thank you. So today I'll be talking about how we at CommVault achieved zero downtime and a zero cost index upgrade in Apache Solr when we moved from Solr 7.x to Solr 8.x. A little about myself. I'm Rahul Goswami. I'm a principal software engineer with the indexing infrastructure team at CommVault. So yeah, Lucene and Solr are pretty much what I am involved with on a day-to-day basis. So let's start with what was done here. So beginning with the problem that we're trying to solve here. So somewhere around Lucene 7.x, there was a change in the norms format where for optimization and encoding optimization reasons, which broke backward compatibility. So in 8.x, Lucene came up with a mandate saying, so for any indexes that have ever been touched by Lucene 6.x or older, you will need to re-index your data from source, and you would no longer even be able to use the Lucene index upgrader tool, which traditionally used to be used by solutions to be able to upgrade from a version prior to the latest version and continue from there. Now, this was, I mean, for us it was an inconvenient change because it needed us to re-index from source, which meant having to, if you were to move to Solr 9 down the line, we would have to re-index maybe more than 300 nodes across several clusters, which means a lot of hardware and man hours. Plus, I assume there must be solutions like us which don't just have a SaaS model but also another licensing model wherein the solution is installed on-premise on customer environments, and that would mean having to go to the customer and say, hey, when you upgrade this version of CommVault, you would require you to provision a few extra index server nodes so that we could do this. And that would have been a hard sell because at the end of the day, the customer is not buying Solr, he's buying CommVault. So that was another thing we could see coming. So then that's when I got to the drawing board and thought, let's see why this and how can we legitimately achieve something which would keep almost everyone happy, including my CommVault, Solr, and Lucene. So one constraint for this solution is that if your fields are stored or doc values, you would be able to re-index your data in place on the same core without provisioning a separate cluster, separate core. So this is the only constraint I would say. So then I got to thinking, like, let's begin with where are the version footprints in Lucene and what are what things depend on it, and how can I do it in a safe way. So there are two major places when you have a Lucene index where the version timestamps, the version stamps reflect. One is the segments. There is a metadata file called segments underscore XYZ, which essentially stores which was the main Solr version or main Lucene version when this index was originally created. And the second being, in each segment there is a version stamp called min version and also a version. Now this min version is an interesting stamp because it says that, let's say, when any two segments merge, if one belongs to 7.x, the other belongs to 8.x, since the writes always happen on the latest codec in Lucene, the version stamp would say it's an 8.x segment now, but the min version would say it's 7.x, meaning it stores the least version of the segments that participate in a merge. So then I thought, if I have to do it in a safe way, I have to make sure that there is no memory of 7.x left in the index once I claim to have upgraded it to 8.x. So which means at the end of the process, each segment should be able to say my min version is 8, and the index version, the created version in the segment info should say I am 8.x2. So this is coming to the design. So now for context, the example that I'm going to walk you through is when an index was originally created in 7.x, we have upgraded Solr to 8.x, and I want to prepare this index for upgrade to 9.x at a later point without having to re-index from source. So that's the setup and the objective. So at a Solr level, when the Solr process comes up and the core container gets initialized, I spawn an async thread which goes through all the containers registered in your core container and sees which of these cores are older and need to be upgraded. And once it finds such a core, two things happen. I set a custom merge policy on the index writer, and the job of this index merge policy is to block older segments, let's say from 7.x, from participating in merges while this process is happening. And thereafter I go and start processing the index segment by segment. So the index is read at a segment level, and a Solr input document is created out of it, and the indexing happens using Solr APIs. Now, this is to ensure that all of your analysis chain, all of your properties of your fields are preserved, because indexing using Solr APIs ensures that all of the analysis is preserved. And the reason for the custom merge policy to prevent 7.x segments from merging is so that they do not go ahead and pollute the index, because I wanted an entirely 8.x index in all respects. So I was also trying, out of abundance of caution, to not have a segment which would say the version is 8 but the min version was 7, because I wanted this process to be lossless. The resulting index should be lossless. So so this is where we are, and so what happens by the end of this process is, the process is for a certain core is reading data from the 7.x indexes and creating 8.x segments, out of them, and done iteratively. At the end of your process, all of your segments are now converted to 8.x segments, because another important thing in Lucene is the write always happens on the latest codec. So any of the segments being written because of the reindexing are all 8.x segments.
And this cluster is also taking search traffic at the same time?
Yes.
So that it's invisible, this rewriting process.
Yes.
It's an atomic switch with each document.
Right.
Okay.
So in fact, it's not even taking search traffic, it's also taking update traffic. And that's the reason I'll come to. So a question might be, why read segment by segment? A few benefits of this approach. Unlike I mean, if I were to read it using Solr APIs at a Solr index searcher level, it wouldn't know which segments the documents are coming from, right? So if you have a traffic which is an update traffic in parallel, you might end up reading documents from 8.x segments which you don't have to reindex. So reading at a segment level ensures that you're only reading from older segments. That way, any new traffic coming in from your application layer, which we can continue to index and continue to create 8.x segments only. Second major advantage is space efficiency, because thanks to Lucene, every time, let's say, all the documents in a segment are processed and rewritten, the documents in that segment are marked as deleted internally, and when all of the documents in the segments have been marked deleted, Lucene clears the segment off. So which means your auxiliary space requirement is essentially just one segment at a time. Another advantage is across restarts, right? When you restart, even if a restart happens in the middle of this process, when the process comes up, you are not repicking any of the already processed documents, because since we are only targeting 7.x segments and they are prevented from merging, you know that your unprocessed documents remain unprocessed and none of the processed documents are ever picked up. So that's another reason for this design choice. So now, as I said, yeah.
Can you explain when you will know that you're really done on all the old segments?
Right. So that's where I'm coming to now. So now, now you are at a point where you have processed all of your 7.x segments. There are no more 7.x segments. Like when you start your reindexing, right? Your segment infos knows which are your 7.x segments, and you kind of only iterate over a list of your 7.x segments, which never changes because your merge policy is not allowing them to merge. So once you are done with that iteration loop, you know you are done with the 7.x segments. So now we are at a point where all of your segments in the current index are 8.x. So this takes care of one part of the version stamp in your index. The part which you are left with is your segment infos has a metadata which says this index was created in 7.x. And this is where the Lucene changes come in. All of the changes so far, mind you, are done at a Solr level. So we are not messing with any of the Lucene codec intricacies and what have you. So at this point, a flag is passed to the index writer, which says if a commit happens, if you see this flag, then do a check where in your index writer, in the prepared commit internal, to ensure that all of your segments have min version and version as 8. And if your metadata says you are 7.x, please change it to reflect that it is now an 8.x. And this happens inside a full flush log, so you're not racing with other commits to cause any kind of corruption. Now, there is an alternative to, I mean, I could sense some discomfort in having to rewrite a property, but it's only because the decision to open an index is based on index created version. You don't have to, I mean, so another an alternative to this could be you have another parallel property. Instead of overwriting your index created version, have a parallel property which says current major version, and when this commit comes in, you set this as your you set this property, this current version, as 8, and when you do a read commit, when Lucene opens an index, it could potentially change to look at the current version to make this decision of whether I should open this index or not. That way you also have the index created version preserved for posterity if you do need it for some reason in the future. So that's an alternative to setting the index created version. Now, so all good. This was done. We upgraded to 9.x. the index is open fine, we are doing fine, everything's good. Now I thought maybe since this is an issue which if I am facing, a lot others are facing too, so I thought why not go and try to contribute upstream and see if it has an audience. So I created a Solr Jira for it. There is a discussion going here, and right now this is dependent on the leucine change which I just mentioned, so as a prerequisite, I went ahead and also created a leucine PR for it. This is the link to the leucine PR, where I'm talking about the change to the index created version time stamp in the index, and hopefully if this is blessed by the leucine committers, it could pave a way for us to be able to do this index upgrade at the Solr level. So this is what it. This is my talk. This is my time, and I'm open to questions.
One thing I noticed in your design of what you're doing at Commvault with Solr is that all your data is apparently stored in Solr, so that allows you to re-add the document. So for many people, that's not the case, but I think that should be highlighted up front. This is, if anybody wants this, they're going to have to do that.
Right. I mean, that's why my presentation began with the constraint. But if and when we do this, the thing is, at a Solr level, right, we already have an API called reindex collection for the cluster.
Same section.
And it has the same constraints. So the other day I was speaking to Jason and Anshum, and Jason brought a point which I like, that if we do this, this could be an alternate implementation to reindex collection, because today it requires you to create another collection, another parallel collection, an alias to it, and things like those. Whereas this could be an enhanced implementation, where enhanced implementation detail, which could whereby you don't have to do any of that anymore. We are upgrading indexes in place, so we could work under the same constraints and have an implementation to reindex collection.
I had a question along the same lines, which is, you mentioned that you have these source fields. Is this a standard thing in Solr, having a source field? Is that, I don't know, like being able to reindex?
No, use that word generally. That's not a technical term.
Okay. That's in your solution. That's
So
right.
Elastic
for our
have a specific.
Yes, in our solutions, all of our indexes did have the source field stored, because we have use cases where we are importing data, pulling in from one index into another, and we do need to preserve fields. So in solutions where this is true, they could benefit from this, because right now, in fact, I mean, for us, in fact, for our search applications, they wouldn't even rely on the relevance score. I mean, for our use case, meaning we would use Solr for hits and then sort by a certain field. So we wouldn't even rely on relevance scores. So the breakage due to norms was not even applicable to us in a way. So that was another thing to consider. Yeah.
Does your pull request for Solr include any changes to the dashboard UI to indicate that this process is ongoing, or which segments are using which major versions, so you can keep track of things over a long period of time? So if your reindexing takes a long time, you can keep an eye on it?
Right. So right now, Solr is just a Jira which is created. I haven't issued a pull request because it's dependent on the leucine pull request. For leucine, I have a pull request. But as we build this, I mean, some things will have to be tuned to make it available for a general public. The solution I have is what works for us, but it will come with other things like maybe an async process which issues a request token, and you could track it using that request token through an API. So all of those things could be built on top of this. Okay, thanks.
Go ahead.
You mentioned updates are happening at the same time as this. those document IDs could be in the Solr 7 segment in that case. How are you ensuring that when you read from the Solr 7 segment, you're not truncating over or updating over a update that you got new for the Solr 8 index?
You were saying that
Well, let's say you have document ID 1 with name equals Kevin. It's in the Solr, the original index that you have, right? Then you update the name to be Hosek, pick another name, right? While you're reading the Solr 7 segments, you would then try to rewrite the Solr document as the name equals Kevin, but that's now wrong. How do you prevent that from happening?
Okay.
You must pull from the index the source field, and it would get the new one at that point, right?
I mean, if it happens in this order, then yes, it would get the new name. But yes, if I read it first, meaning and the update, and there is a race condition here. Yes, if it happens in the opposite order, then it wouldn't matter. But if it happens so that an update comes in and it sets it to, like, I have already read the document to be Kevin before I update it. If a process comes in and finishes its update to maybe Jose, right? If that completes first, then yes, there is a potential for a race condition here.
That's a great question, and there's a solution that to use to your paths that you've got internally at Commvault, whatever. You can do a conditional update.
I mean, on a version, you mean you send in a version like
yes.
you have, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
You should definitely do that. Right?
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
another constraint you would need, that it doesn't work in the general case if you don't have a specific version field, or you're saying.
This is
use
what we
the-
saw with Cloud. I think it's got the version field.
Oh, that's it native to it? Yeah. That's
Yeah, it's
good.
native field.
Yeah.
I'd like to have one thing. There's another PR, the GitHub issue that we've seen that's been created along similar lines. The idea being, it's more low hanging. The current constraint that stops Lucene from opening an order index is it's coded to be current version -1. That's being changed, that's being done to having an explicit value of min supported version. So you can continue to update your codec versions, but as long as we change that in code, we would be able to open order indexes going forward. So we could be on Lucene 16, but unless there was a breaking change that forced us to go ahead and say min supported versions now Lucene 15, we will be able to open a Lucene 10 segment with 16.
Right, and that could be a good starting point to alleviate some of the concerns, and this works perfectly with the solution here, because let's say the example Anshum mentioned, right? If that PR goes in, then what we would say is, let's say you are on Lucene 10 and you keep on you eventually move to Lucene 13. And Lucene is able to, and we never move that codec min supported version from 10. You could keep on upgrading your solution and it would be able to read even a Lucene 10 index. And let's say a breaking change happens in Lucene 13, and now you want to upgrade to 14. Lucene would at that point say, hey, min supported version is 13. Okay, that means so even though you've been reading your indexes so far, if you want to upgrade to 14, you need to reindex your data from source, which is where the solution can carry forward from, saying you don't have to reindex from your source, but while you are on 13, you could reindex using this API, have your indexes converted to 13 legitimately, and then upgrade your solution to 14. So even in that case, I mean, it kind of forms an end-to-end solution wherein you are essentially never updating from the source if your fields are stored or doc values true.
I think I just want to point out that you've done two different things that are not necessarily dependent. You have this whole upgrade the index in place process, which you could run and then not update the min supported version. That to me is a valuable contribution on its own, right? And if I were you, I would open this Solr Jira and don't make it dependent on the Lucene, so you can make some progress, right? And then at the same time pursue the change that you're advocating for in updating the min supported version. Does that seem like a way forward, at least in the short term?
So maybe I'm missing something. Like, even if I go with the parallel property, that's what you're talking about, right? Having not rely on min supported version, but
I'm saying you've built this process for upgrading your index in place.
Mhm.
It has this clever thing it does where it blocks the updates to the old segments and reindexes them in parallel, and that, so you could have that process. And then what you've described is that once that process is complete, you then go and fix up all the min supported versions, right? Let's say you just didn't do that second part.
Okay.
You still have a usable index that you've upgraded, and you've now got like all your index so I think that what I'm saying is that's valuable change to Solr that you could make without that phase 2 being completed.
Now, I mean, the thing would be like, yes, I could do that if the community supports that, the committers support that, but my index would still be in a position where I cannot upgrade it to 9.x at that point. Right?
I understand.
So
Yeah.
So from a client's perspective, it's job half done because I anyway cannot upgrade to 9.x, and it doesn't matter to the client whether you upgraded one segment or all segments, as long as the metadata in the segment infos doesn't reflect that, or segment infos check to open an index. I mean, right now there's a
I understand the problem. Okay, so
I guess the point is that
you
it
can
could
always
work for
access
for example, for fixing some schema changes. Let's say someone changed the analysis, right,
Mhm.
in one of the text fields. Then you are doing this reindex
Mhm.
and creating the new schema. Even if it doesn't work for upgrading, it does work for upgrading the schema. That's the Mike's
upgrade
point.
schema also won't quite well, because you are reading your data using.
It will upgrade some of the changes in the schema, so it's complex. But for example, if someone changes the synonyms list, right, the new segment will get the new synonyms, right?
Right.
Or if you're
Right.
changing from
Right.
from a numeric
Right.
from the old numeric, the try fields to point fields, that
Yeah.
would also work.
Yeah,
Just
but good luck query in
synonyms.
place.
So I think it has a lot of value for synonyms because you could constantly update synonyms and be rerunning this.
I just think I mention it because I think whenever you have a complex change that's at all controversial, it's probably better to break it down into smaller pieces that people can, approve, go forward with, whatever. Just make it.
Yeah, I'm certainly open to that discussion, and if it is accepted at the Solr level, we could go ahead and start something.
One idea to improve on the approach that would accomplish it. Yeah. So I think of a number of elements of what you did would also work for simply making sure that all the segments get merged to the latest version. Because a number of people after upgrade would like to be using the latest and greatest codec at a lower level, at the latest and greatest postings format, to have the latest enhancements at the Lucene level.
Mhm.
And there's no. I mean, you could say optimize down to one segment and accomplish that, but we don't want that for known reasons. There is no API to tell Solr to upgrade all the segments. So I think you have something here that could, you've done something that depends on having the source field so you can complete the reindex documents. But I could imagine something maybe similar where you don't even have that requirement. Like we just want to update the segments. I can imagine like some elements of what you've done there, arranging to trigger something in certain scenarios is checking. Oh, check that we have a new segment of a new version. We could start merging segments one by one in the background. Something like that would be nice.
Merging. So I'm just trying to make sure I understand the last part of your question. When you say merging segments one by one in the background, like what's
Yes.
what's the? I'm trying to understand the reason and the value add.
The value add is to use the latest code.
Mm-hmm.
If you have an old segment from 7.x,
Mhm.
then it is being read by code written back whenever that was written, whatever that was
Right.
coded, right? So you'd like to use the latest and greatest format, the benefits that are in the latest version.
Sure. Yeah.
And that would help you if this X-1 is tweaked in such a way that I hear about it might be tweaked, then you could incrementally get your way without having stored data. you can incrementally get your way version by version by having the previous back codec. You can incrementally.
Only
get
thing
yourself.
is, yeah, I mean, if there are no breaking changes, then sure, you keep what you say is true. But if ever a breaking change happens, then reading from the older codec will not be lossless anymore, right?
When you say breaking change, like what are we talking about?
Like the norms change that you had, right?
Okay.
Now, I mean, if you were,
Those are very, very few and far between, by the way.
yeah, I mean,
I think there's only one example.
I've
I've never heard of another example.
Yeah.
That's the one example we hear.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
okay, I mean, I could think about that, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if there's value in just having segments written with the latest codec,
Absolutely.
that's still a win.
Yes.
Right.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Okay, Adrian just pushed a change this morning to switch postings block from 128 to 256, and it's a big speed up for certain queries.
Mm-hmm.
People, when they upgrade to 10.4, would want to rewrite the entire index if they could.
11. We might not even have a 10.4.
I'm here.
Oh, okay, 11.
Yeah.
Question.
I know there are plenty of folks in the room who are part of the community, and this is more of a question for you guys. If this were to be merged into latest, would anybody be willing or even interested in backporting this to version 8? Because folks like me are actually in this exact scenario. We have on disk 7 artifacts. We can run 8, but we can't go beyond that without this. And if this were to be backported and done in like a Hail Mary release against Solr 8, it would be very helpful to folks in my position.
The challenge is the query system is and it requires a Lucene and Solr release because 8 was a combined release for both.
Yep.
It's end of life officially.
I feel like this is for hero devs need to come down.
Yeah,
they're here.
Yeah.
I think there's nothing stopping a committer from merging to 8.x,
Yes.
but doing a release would be a royal pain. Now, does someone on the side want to? In fact, I think Kevin. I think of another consultancy, a search consultancy out there. I think they do some Solr 8 with their own. They support their own 8x release that they do because there are people out there on 8 and they want some key things. So.
The key piece that you're waiting on for Lucene will never get back ported to Lucene.
Right.
Right. So that's the part that needs to be addressed for Solr 8, regardless of moving
It'll also
forward.
break.
Right. You're not going to get to 9. If you have a 7 index, you're not going to be able to make it to 9.
Are your indices before or after the great norms change example? When did that change happen relative to your indices? Do you have the old norm format or the new norm
I have
format?
absolutely no idea.
So that's the big question as to whether you can just jump forward to 11.x.
I
Well,
didn't look
assuming
too closely at that. Could you elaborate more on the norms format change, please?
Maybe you could. Do you remember the details? Was it an accidental backwards break or an intentional one?
I think it was
was
an
intentional.
intentional backwards break
Yeah.
where something needed to be stored that wasn't stored historically, or
Okay.
Yeah, there was an encoding change in norms, which would not have been compatible with the previous codec because that information, as Anshu said, was not present.
Okay. It changed how the bytes are mapped to floats. Like a norm is basically a 1-byte float,
Okay.
and previously it was quantized with a certain way, and then after the change it was quantized with a better way. But I think
Okay.
nothing in the index, there was no metadata that told the codec which way it was written as.
But couldn't you know that from the version of Lucene?
That I would have thought so, and so I don't fully understand why this
That's
example.
why I'm hoping someone knows the details.
That's why I was
on that.
wondering if it was accidental.
There must have been some like per field information that was additionally available in the newer. I'm just speculating. I don't know.
I would be willing to hack my segment info file if
Well, so
If Lucene wasn't willing to
this discussion sort of
That
suggests
sounds like a
there
great
might be
tool.
Back it up.
There might be a space for
That would be a wonderful CLI tool. There ought to be a CLI tool for that.
Can I ask a question about your PR?
I was
Yeah,
surprised
I
this
think
one
Gus has
was
been waiting for a
analyzed
question.
to
Gus,
just get you the information.
It would have been a great hackathon.
So I think this
Yeah, go-
discussion suggests there might be a space for a tool that looks at an index and says, what's the lowest version I see in the segments? And then fixes the thing, and that doesn't have to be part of Lucene.
Right, that could be.
I mean,
Doesn't even need to
when it
fix
comes to
Where
ideas,
was
Just
Right.
reporting is good
But
enough
no,
to begin
but
with.
yeah, it could just report, and it could also have an option to update the segment info.
you
if
mean
want,
the
right?
index upgrader too.
Right.
Yeah, runs that.
index upgrader till minus segment infos.
Yeah.
Right, the segments API.
Yeah, this would be much
Yeah, right.
specific to the segment info. But
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
API,
So I think we're talking about like workarounds, which
Yeah.
can work.
Well, yeah,
But
but-
I in terms of the high road here, I'm just curious if your PR, like you suggested this alternative, which I know there was some strong objection in the mailing list to changing the meaning of the min index field, because if you change it, then it's no longer telling you what it used to tell you, whatever. So you came up with this alternative. Have you proposed that?
Yes.
You did.
That one hasn't gotten a response yet.
Okay.
That's the last comment on the PR, if you see.
Okay.
I can highlight the PR, or I mean.
Just trying to catch up with the latest.
Yeah. So so the first proposition did meet with some opposition. I'm rhyming now. And later on, I did propose this alternative. Like the thing is, in my opinion, it's a little awkward, is because you are saying do not lie about the index created version. But my counter argument to that is the problem is not so much with modifying that, but the fact that the decision to open an index is based on when you created it. Like that decision is an implementation detail which doesn't have to come from created version. You could say something like, I'll look at this property, say what is my current version? If it's good enough, I'll open it. Lucene is choosing to base the decision based on when it was created. Now, it should maintain it for posterity to see how far the index has come. That's one utility I could see. But to say that do not lie about the index created major version, and hence we will not say that the index is openable, so to say, is maybe something open for debate.
I think I would still not want to fake it.
Sure.
Which is why the other PR that I was mentioning literally has the ability in Lucene to just say, continue to open old indexes and define that value statically rather than that being dependent on your current Lucene version. So you could keep that at, like, we could do a 10.4 release and literally say, I'm fine opening a 9.x index, right? If that happens, Lucene would be okay to open that index.
Right.
Solr would be open.
It's a nice change, but it won't get you past the 7 to 8.
Yes, 7 to 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, where we are right now on this PR is I propose this other alternative, and let's see how it's received.
Why is the version encoded in both segment infos and the segments themselves?
Each segment needs to know for the documents within it which version wrote it. And a segment could be the product of like newly indexed documents and previously merged documents. So it needs to record that it merged in some segments that had even older things than the current version that wrote it. Then the segment infos records the created version because of this norm situation where there was some change in how the 8 bits are interpreted as floats. Such that carrying over those 8 bits, if they were previously quantized on the old representation, carrying over and merging and upgrading, those 8 bits are no longer accurately representing the floats in the new way. And so I think that's why this segment infos recorded this piece of metadata.
Because my thought is that if you have an old segment and you are updating it the way this was done, you're setting the delete bit on the old segment, right? In theory.
Yeah.
Right.
Therefore, you will end up with a segment that is not being merged, that has all delete bits.
Right.
And if you didn't have segment info, the segment infos at the top level, then the whole problem almost goes away, and you can merge a segment that has all delete bits with anything newer because you know you don't care. You just drop it.
Right, I totally agree. You've essentially achieved a complete index transplant in place. Nothing was carried over from the old index. Everything was newly indexed. It's as if you made a new index and indexed into it. If you had done it that way, Lucene would let you do it. But because you did it in place and you carefully ensured that you have a completely re-indexed index and nothing remains of the old one, this stupid metadata doesn't apply because everything's been replaced.
That's why.
Because this index now has 0 memory of being 7, because even the min version is 8.
Right, the only thing left is that property.
Yes.
Right.
Can we make the Lucene
And it's-
change that during a merge, if all the bits are, if the 2 segments are going together and the one's all deleted, the minimum is actually the only one you keep?
or the current.
The
Current
undeleted.
is the new minimum.
That
So
is, I
you
think,
take two segments.
I think that is
Here's
what
the
it's
question,
doing.
Could we just remove that property from segments altogether and just compute it at runtime by opening the segment infos
Yeah.
files?
Yeah.
Because if you merge a 7 segment with an 8 segment, and the 7 segment has all deleted bits, right?
It would not exist in that case. The segment itself won't exist in that case because
Lucene
Lucene
drops
would have
it.
cleared it off.
Only if you are merging them, right?
Uh,
The delete only happens on a merge at that point, right?
The deletes are resolved on merge, like they're kind of buffered, which primary keys you're deleting, and then they're applied during merge, and when they're applied, if a segment gets 100% deleted, it just drops it.
Correct, but does that still contribute to the segment info minimum version?
I don't think it does. I think the
And
new
if that's
segment,
the case, then you wouldn't even need to update it.
No, I think the additional bit is
segment
when you
infos.
When you drop the last version 7 full deleted segment, you should know, oh, I'm in a new world.
Right.
I believe Lucene doesn't acknowledge that for now.
That is right, because it's carrying over in the segment infos, the one metadata file.
And
It's
my point
carrying
is
it
being
over.
that seems like a non-controversial change that Lucene could make.
I would
to
think
improve
so,
on
but it
itself.
seems to be controversial, perhaps because people don't understand the whole index got transplanted. Like it's
Yes.
completely newly
I
reindexed.
like Mike's idea there, where like instead of when you do a read commit, when you bring the index, instead of looking at segment infos, if you could actually go over how the index is iterated and see none of the segments are min version x-1, allow me to open it, right?
It would
That-
just become a property of the commit that's
Yes.
computed at open time. Yeah.
Right.
You know, I don't know. Maybe
I
that
mean,
would be an
basically-
end run around this. Like you don't have to
Yeah.
modify anything.
Correct.
You know.
That's another that makes sense.
Yeah. Is there no workaround in Lucene's APIs? Can't you open make a new segment info, so just add the segment info of all the segments, and then Lucene would think you created it?
Oh, do create a brand new index writer and then just do add indexes with all of your segments?
Yeah.
That's copying a lot of bytes. I'm wondering if you can just actually just not copy any bytes and carry the metadata over to the new segment infos. Like make a blank Lucene index in memory, segment infos. Add the segment info.
You said add indexes, but doesn't the add index block you from merging two indexes that are in two different versions? I don't know. I think so. But I saw that because the split chart code in Solr actually uses add indexes, and that fails if you have segments from two different major versions.
On the incoming segments to add indexes?
Yes. So
Oh.
it just fails even if you have a 7 and an 8 segment, or an 8 and a 9 segment. It just would not.
So I wouldn't use add indexes then. I think you could just make a segment infos in memory, copy over the segment info, write it. And Lucene will think it wrote it with the current major version.
I mean, but
Basically,
It's a workaround that you could do on top of Lucene's existing APIs, not requiring a Lucene change.
I'm not sure if I get the whole of it, but right now the index version, the index created version is a private final. So
Yeah, I'm saying act like you're going to make a brand new index with 0 documents.
okay.
You have your index over here that you've completely rewritten, but Lucene doesn't agree with you, right? It's got entirely new segments. Make a brand new index for index writer, and it will think created is the current Lucene version because you have no documents in it. You just started empty index. Copy over the segment info instances from the old one. Don't copy over the segment infos. The segment info, the list of segment info. Copy them over to the new blank segment infos, and ask this one to write.
By the
And
way, can we all agree
but
to
then you're
ban
again-
plural classes?
But then you're losing the advantage of that space saving that
No,
happens.
no,
here.
all the space saving already happened. There's no copying of bytes. It's
Oh,
just
you're
a
saying
metadata.
at the end of the process I do that.
Yep, you've already done everything great. You're not wasting space. You're copying one segment at a time, and now you have a completely rewritten index. It's like we humans, after like 300 days, all of our atoms are replaced. Something like that.
So forgive my ignorance here. Would this be the kind of thing where you would say, stop the world for a second, close the index,
Yeah.
rewrite the new one, open the new one, and now we're back open for business?
Well,
Yes, I think there would have to be an atomic kind of
'Cause you
stop
have
the
to
world
write
sort
that
of
file
event.
on the disk and reopen the index, right?
You maybe don't have to do any I/O. I think you don't have to do any I/O. I think you could do an atomic. So there is a stop the world event, but I think it doesn't have any I/O in that stoppage.
Why are you stop the world?
Because you can't have updates coming in while you got to make an atomic switch to a new index
Yeah,
writer.
At that point, yeah, you would have to. But does segment infos like this allow is it a public method to add?
That I'm not sure about.
Right.
Whether
I
you could
think
just
you can.
construct it.
I think you
just,
can.
my
think you
understanding
can.
of what your idea was, Mike, is you're just using that to get a file, and then you just put that file into place.
Yes,
You-
the
you're-
one file, the
like,
segment
you're
infos
just-
file.
You're not hacking on Lucene here. I mean, there's some Lucene user code, but you're just trying to get Lucene to write a file that you can overwrite.
You're gonna write like a new segments n, a brand new segments n, and you're tricking Lucene by doing the in-memory algebra to write it out. But
Yeah.
I guess there is some I/O because you have to write it and then open an index writer on the new commit point.
Can you kickstart the generation for that segment? And
I think so. Lucene will, when you write the segment infos, I think a good question, whether you can tell it that it has to start from the next generation. You might have to switch directories in the file system, possibly. Anyway, it's all a workaround still. We're still in workaround space, but I think on top of Lucene's existing crazy APIs around segment infos, it may be possible to do the transplant so that Lucene thinks it's a brand new index. Because it really is a brand new index. You
Yes.
just made a brand new index under the umbrella of the old index. You
Right. I
physically
mean, we just
replaced everything
discussed a
else.
few alternatives, right? Like Mike's suggestion
Yeah.
of reading only the segments, or as I said, creating a parallel property. I could also explore what you just said, but I would be kind of surprised if Lucene let me create a brand new segment infos and have a public method to update segment names in that. But I could go and explore that if it's
Yeah,
a
don't update segment
possibility.
names. You just the segment generation, segments_n, right? The n.
Right. But if I generate a new segments_n, that segments_n has to know what segments comprise the index, like the previous one does, right?
Right.
So now we are talking about create a new segment info like the segments_n, read it, and hope that there is a public method which could say segment infos or new segment infos dot add segment, something like, and just
Yes.
reading from that list, right?
Yes.
That, if I would be kind of surprised if this method is public.
I know it's very likely something in there won't be public, but it's a viable path, perhaps.
I could explore that.
I think it's probably
That's
public. I tried that in
gonna
the
be
index
useful
rearranger.
for people
Right?
Oh, index
who
rearranger.
migrate
Okay.
Yeah, I think what you described, like as a step 2 after in-place updating index, can be a standalone migration tool if you're willing to stop your index for a while, where your original constraint is like you want 0 downtime, you want everything else
I
to
mean,
work.
this was how
There is-
we did it, which did not require a downtime.
Yeah.
But if we are to make it available for a larger public and actually contribute upstream, we could. We are open to constraints if they are reasonable. Like in this case, the stop the world might not be for. Like imagine re-indexing a 5 terabyte, 10 terabyte index. The stop the world would not be as long as re-indexing a 10 terabyte index. It would be maybe 15 seconds, a few seconds basically. So that could still be a reasonable constraint.
Yeah, as a user in this situation, I would be totally willing to accept 5 minutes of downtime to not do a week of re-indexing where my index is offline. I mean,
By the
hey,
way,
that's-
there is
that's
a
money well spent.
public method on segment info. It's called add segment commit info, which I think is a wrapper around
That's
segment info.
public. Okay. Segment commit info is also
I think
public.
It sounds like we need a Sunday search hackathon.
Yeah, sounds like we do. There was a second hackathon thing we were gonna. What was the first one? You were saying we should have had the hackathon. There was an idea we should have done. You just mentioned another.
If only
It was
the
like a
hackathon
second
was
idea.
tomorrow.
Then
Yeah, this would be the perfect hackathon. Yeah.
Lesson learned.
We didn't go in with an idea.
Next time we do the hackathon
So maybe we need to add
after
this.
the second idea.
Yeah. The hackathon needs to come last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're out of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone.